From Eyewitness News, this is Newsmakers.
Welcome to a special edition of Newsmakers. I'm Tim White. This week, the Boston Marathon bombing 6 months later. According to the Boston Athletic Association, the organization that coordinates the marathon, there were 156 registered runners from Rhode Island in the April 15th race. Only 87 of them crossed the finish line. Many of them never had the opportunity because the race was stopped at the 4-hour and 9-minute mark, the moment when two explosions rocked downtown Boston and changed the iconic race forever. This week, we are looking back at the marathon bombing 6 months later. We'll bring you the amazing emotional and physical journey of Newport's Heather Abbott, who lost a leg that day. But first, Rhode Island State Trooper Rupin Bastasian. He decided at the last minute to run in the 117th Boston Marathon, which also happens to be his badge number. 7 minutes after he crossed the finish line, tragedy struck. In his first trip back to Boylston Street since that day, Bastasian talks about what he experienced and the ripple effects still being felt 6 months later. So I gotta ask you, have you been back here since you ran in the Boston Marathon?
I have not. Today's the first time.
What are your thoughts as you walk down Boylston Street?
It was kind of difficult, to be honest, when I first made the corner, took a right onto Boylston, and it kind of brought you back to that day, and you could, I didn't think it would happen to me, I guess, but you could kind of hear the screaming, and you could kind of relive the whole thing for a minute, so I kind of paused and just kind of, took it all in.
How did you deal with those memories of people, what you saw, and we'll get into that in a bit, but in the days after, how did you handle what you saw and what you heard?
The job was really very good in trying to, get the proper help, but, with the faith that I have, the church I go to, and the training I have, you put it all together, you put it in perspective. Troopers or police officers or all the first responders see a lot of that stuff, not in that scale, on a daily basis, whether it's a car accident or whatever it is. So that was kind of just an amplified version of that, if I could use that terminology. And you just kind of move on and go forward.
So we're in the shadow of where the first explosion happened. Where were you when the bomb went off, if you could point for us?
I was about maybe 200 yards up where that bus is right there, the pink bus.
I see it.
I was right around there in that vicinity when the first one went off.
What did that feel like?
Nothing. Nobody really had a clue what it was. It just went off and everyone looked back and just carried on. We all thought it was some kind of like a ceremonial cannon of some sort, because I think it was the last thing you expected on that day. And I'm not sure if it was 11, 12 seconds later what it was when that one went off.
The second one?
The second one, which was, a little bit down there.
Is that when you knew something was wrong?
That's when everyone started, you knew right away, and you saw the smoke of the first one. At that point, you had the little mushroom that went up, and I knew something's going on, obviously. So that's when I turned around and ran back this way.
Describe what you saw. You're 200 yards or so down that way, 100 yards, and you start running this way toward the explosion. What did you see?
Just mass chaos, everyone running away, people, yelling and screaming, obviously, and just turned around, and as I head up, there was I don't know if it was a medic or some kind of first responders trying to get up this way in a vehicle. There was 4 of them on the vehicle, but there were so many people on the roadway, so I kind of jumped in front of them and started running and yelling, make the way, clear the way, and there was people that immediately, Boston PD and a bunch of people, the police officers here and Mass State, they just did such a good job jumping in immediately and just, securing the scene and doing what they had to do. So I identified myself as I was running towards them, saying, I'm just here to help if I can.
You identified yourself as a state trooper?
As a trooper, yeah.
And how did you help? When you got up to where the bombing happened, you're at ground zero here. Obviously, there just must have been mayhem. What did you do?
The first thing I did was just stop and look around and look up. I was just trying to see if there was, anyone around, if I could identify some kind of, subject that was involved. That's the first thing I did.
And that's kind of an important point. I mean, we can all look back at this and go, okay, there were 2 blasts, but running into this thing, you didn't know if there were going to be more.
Correct. And that went through my mind, because I have a wife and 3 kids, and I'm like, what if? But you kind of put that aside when you want to be involved in this field, and you got to be there to help. And not just us, not just Rhode Island or Mass or all the other departments that or law enforcement personnel that was out here.
Yeah.
You had civilians that were also coming out to help. I mean, obviously they weren't the majority, being the civilians, but they were out here too trying to help out. It's just humanity. You want to take care of other humans, you know what I mean? So I paused and looked up, but that was about, I don't know, maybe 5, maybe 6 seconds at best, and I'm like, well, it is what it is. We gotta take care of these guys. And I was like, I asked a couple of the guys that were here, how can I help? They said, we're just doing tourniquets. So we grabbed gauze and used that to apply tourniquets, and just assisted a couple people, put them on wheelchairs. There was a female, I remember, she had like a big gouge in her leg. I tied that up and I carried her, put her on a wheelchair, and the station was right there where they were doing all the
right,
medical care.
Station. Describe what kind of shape the people were in over here, right at that spot.
The people, I don't think they all knew what happened, but I think the pain was, so severe or so much that they couldn't really feel it. I was involved in a motor vehicle accident 10 years ago, and your body kind of goes into shock, so you don't really feel the pain. So most of the people were, mentally strong. I think being a runner, you're mentally strong as it is, so, they knew what had happened, but I don't think they felt the pain.
Have you spoken to any of them since?
I have not, no.
If you could reach out to them, what would you tell them? What would you ask?
I'm amazed at so many of them at their level of just kind of going forward with what they have, living with being, for those who are amputated, living with the amputee, and saying, I'm glad I can run and not have shin splints, and make jokes out of it and say, hey, at least I'm going to be able to run again. And again, that's the mental strength that a lot of the runners have, and it's awesome to see that, because they're being an inspiration to a lot of people out there who never run. And I think this made more runners, and it made for, we call it Boston Strong. It made for a stronger group, a stronger.
As if on cue, do you plan on running in the Boston Marathon again?
I do. I just signed up for the 118th. So
you did?
I did, yeah.
Are you running in the 118th because of what happened on that day?
I am.
When we come back, more from our interview with Trooper Bastasian Plus.
When I came home from the hospital initially, I had left for the marathon that day, assuming I'd be home at night. And I had left some short beach dresses that I had just bought on my bed. And when I came home, they were still there. And it was a real reality check.
Newport's Heather Abbott was a bystander that day, losing the lower part of her left leg in the second explosion. Eyewitness News anchor Susan Roberts has been tracking her progress, her journey over the last 6 months. Our conversation with Heather Abbott. Stay with us. You're watching Newsmakers.